The story starts with Keigo Kazami, a 28-year-old high school teacher scrolling through some pretty intense news on his phone. He's reading headlines about teachers getting into trouble with students, and he's honestly terrified, thinking the world might be ending. He tells himself that he's actually relieved he prefers older women because he could never imagine looking at a child in that way. Next, we see Keigo heading into an interview for a new transfer student. He introduces himself as the homeroom teacher for Class 1A. The woman sitting across from him introduces herself as Kirimi Takanashi. Keigo notices right away that she has a very powerful aura about her. He realizes she's 32 years old and figures she must be more than just a typical parent or guardian. We then learn that Kirimi is actually a veteran actress who started her career when she was only 3 years old. She's been in the industry for nearly 30 years. Keigo remembers hearing that she's a widow, even though he doesn't watch much television. He asks her to explain her reasons for applying to the school. Kirimi explains that her daughter has been refusing to go to school, which has made her very worried. She mentions that she thought the liberal atmosphere of this specific school would be a good influence on her daughter. Keigo starts to feel for her, thinking about how even celebrities have a lot of private struggles. He promises her that he will do everything in his power to help as a teacher. However, when he brings up the need to go to a shop to get measurements for the school uniform and PE clothes, Kirimi tells him that it won't be necessary at all. She tells him that she's already taken care of it and that the uniform is a perfect fit. Keigo is completely shocked as she shows off the outfit. Keigo immediately storms into the principal's office, demanding to know what the meaning of this is. The principal is very calm and says she thought she told him that a relative named Takanashi would be transferring in and that he needed to handle the guidance. Keigo yells back that he definitely didn't hear anything about an adult woman being the one to enroll. Kirimi tries to downplay it, saying she's often told she looks 10 years younger than she is. Keigo is just standing there, totally confused, wondering how a 32-year-old in a school uniform is supposed to be reassuring. We then get a look at why she's doing this. In a flashback, her daughter, Masuzu, told her that she wouldn't understand her problems because Kirimi never even went to high school. Kirimi explains that she decided to enroll now so she could finally empathize with her daughter's feelings. The principal then explains the bigger picture. She says that Kirimi's daughter is actually a gifted girl and a very famous influencer. The principal believes that if the daughter enrolls, it would be great for the school's image and would have a positive impact on the other students. But she points out that before any of that can happen, they first have to find a way to actually get the daughter interested in the school. The principal starts off by telling Kazami that his new job is to support Kirimi's fun school life. Kazami is totally stunned, wondering why on earth it has to be him. He tries to convince himself that maybe it's because the principal has high expectations for his leadership skills as a teacher. The principal then explains that she thought a certain level of distance was for the best, especially since he was the only one who didn't know about Kirimi's fame. Kazami can only think about how the principal's sense of compliance is way too high for his liking. They end up in the social studies prep room, which Kirimi asks about. Kazami explains that it's essentially a warehouse where the school keeps all its old antiques and display items. Kazami asks Kirimi to wait just a moment while he collects some handouts. But look at Kirimi. She's acting like a kid in a candy store. She's getting so excited looking at a globe and all the old stuff. She quickly apologizes, explaining that back when she was younger, her hands were so full with work and raising her child that she couldn't even dream about attending high school. She admits that while she intended to do this for her daughter's sake, she might have gotten a little carried away. Kazami starts to change his mind about her, thinking that maybe this crazy 32-year-old is actually much easier to talk to than he imagined. But then he notices something dangerous. One of the antiques on the shelf is starting to wobble. Kazami shouts for her to watch out because the antiques are falling. There's a loud crash as everything comes tumbling down. He immediately rushes over, asking if she's okay. The scene gets pretty awkward as Kirimi ends up in a suggestive position on the floor. Kazami is blushing like a tomato and starts stammering, trying to explain that this is all a huge misunderstanding and he is so sorry for what happened. Kirimi clarifies that she's actually wearing that specific uniform for character preparation because she's playing a time-traveling housewife in her next role. She even mentions that the outfit isn't from her generation. Kazami realizes that the misunderstanding she was worried about was just about her fashion choice, not the position they were just in. He tells her he's just glad she didn't get hurt, but Kirimi points out that even his ears have turned bright red. She doesn't stop there, though. She leans in and asks him if he's actually getting excited by seeing a 32-year-old woman in a sailor uniform. She playfully calls him a pervert teacher, and you can see he is totally losing his cool. Kazami is left speechless, asking her what she is even saying. Kirimi teases him further, noting that he doesn't look like he completely hates the situation. Then she drops a bombshell, saying she's okay with it if it's just a no-strings-attached relationship, and that she could play around with him for just a little bit. And then, whoa, Kazami suddenly pins her against the cabinets in a total power move. Kirimi looks absolutely shocked by his sudden change in attitude. Kazami is having a total internal crisis. He starts thinking about all the news headlines he's seen. He tells himself that even if there's consent, or even if the student is the one doing the seducing, he can't give in. He imagines being taunted as a pervert teacher or having to deal with even weirder situations. He tells himself that even so, he has to stay strong. Suddenly, Kazami gets super dramatic. He yells out that he will absolutely never lay a hand on a student because that is a teacher's ultimate responsibility. Kirimi just looks at him and calmly points out that his logic is actually pretty flawed. She continues by saying that she is also a responsible adult. Then she notes that as far as power dynamics go, he is the one currently on top of her. Kazami realizes how compromising the position looks and immediately faceplants onto the floor in shame, while Kirimi just looks down at him, wondering what's wrong with her teacher. We then see them in the school nurse's office. Kazami has a bandage on his head, but says he's just glad it was a minor injury. Kirimi is feeling very guilty and keeps apologizing, offering to treat him. Kazami then asks her what she was trying to say earlier before the accident happened. Kirimi gets a bit sentimental for a moment. She tells him that if she were to trust her daughter to anyone, it would be a teacher just like him. But then she quickly says she was just kidding and slumps over. Kazami is left feeling totally confused. As she walks away, she tells him that he just threw away a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, but adds that he can let her know if he ever changes his mind. Just then, a group of students slides the door open, worriedly asking if Sensei is okay. A whole crowd of girls rushes in, saying they were so worried because they heard he was unconscious. Kazami tries to shoo them away, telling them this isn't a sideshow and that he's totally fine. Meanwhile, Kirimi gets pushed aside by the other girls and looks absolutely fuming. Kirimi is completely shocked by what she's seeing. She asks him if he is actually popular with girls. Kazami is totally clueless and asks what she's talking about, saying he just tends to be liked by children and animals. Kirimi gets even more annoyed, yelling that he's basically treating the students like animals and demands that someone bring her a translator. The narrator mentions that both of them are starting to feel a bit uneasy about their future school life together. Next, it's time for Kirimi's official introduction to the class. She tells everyone her name is Kirimi Takanashi and explains that due to various circumstances, she is transferred there.
She admits she's a little older than everyone else, but says she looks forward to being with them. The students start whispering, wondering if she's really that Takanashi Kirimi. One girl nervously asks if she can get an autograph. Kirimi plays it up, saying that normally people have to go through her agency, but she'll do it just this once. But here's the hilarious twist. The students clarify that they don't want her autograph, they want her daughter's autograph. Kirimi is visibly shocked and starts pouting like a little kid. Back in the prep room, Kirimi is treating the place like her own private dressing room. Kazami is just staring at her, noting that she even brought a face roller to school. Kirimi tries to play it off, saying it's a good thing her daughter is a famous creator, but then she suddenly bursts into tears. She asks Kazami if he also thinks TV is just dead content in this day and age. Kazami tells her she needs to start acting like a student and behave with proper conduct. Finally, he gives in a bit and asks how he can help her out. Kirimi-san shows off her very fancy, lacy underwear and asks Kazami-kun if the color is against school rules. Kazami-kun is absolutely losing it, telling her not to look at him like it's okay just because it happened by accident. Kirimi-san keeps the pressure on, asking him what he considers proper underwear. She actually thinks plain white underwear is way more lewd. Poor Kazami-kun is having a total internal crisis. He realizes that since she's 32, there wouldn't even be any legal issues if they got physical, but he knows it would absolutely destroy his credibility as a teacher. He tries to be the responsible one, telling her to hurry up and button her shirt before she catches a cold, but Kirimi-san takes it personally, pouting and asking if he's trying to say her immunity is lower just because she's older than the other girls. Kazami-kun can't believe that even catching a cold is a sensitive topic for her age. It gets even wilder when Kirimi-san claims she has an amazing metabolism and tells him to check for himself. But right at that perfect, or maybe worst moment, a student named Kobayashi opens the door and sees them in a very compromising position. Kobayashi is completely frozen in shock. Kirimi-san, being a pro, immediately flips into actress mode and asks why they shouldn't act lovey-dovey. Kazami-kun has to tell her to knock it off and quit the professional acting. Kazami-kun tries to play it cool, taking the documents Kobayashi brought and thanking her for being the right person to ask, but Kobayashi is clearly overwhelmed. She shouts that she's leaving and dashes out of the room. Kazami-kun just sighs, but then he gets hit from the other side. Kirimi-san starts rumbling with jealousy, asking why he was acting so lovey-dovey with a young girl. Kazami-kun can only think to himself that this student is acting way too much like a monster parent. Outside in the hall, the rumors are already flying. Other students are whispering about the transfer student being some celebrity's mom and how it looks like they're filming it drama because she's so close to sensei. Meanwhile, Kobayashi is in a dark place. She's looking at a photo she managed to snap of Kirimi-san leaning over Kazami-kun. She always thought sensei had no interest in children, but now she sees he likes adults. She gulps, thinking that if she spreads this photo on the internet, the transfer student's reputation would be ruined, and she tells herself it wouldn't even be her fault. But just as she's plotting, disaster strikes. Kobayashi trips right at the top of the stairs. As she starts to tumble, she thinks to herself that there's no way her life is about to end over something like this. But then Kirimi-san catches Kobayashi-san right before she hits the floor. It was a close call. Kirimi-san lets her go and says that it's a good thing she happened to be down there at that moment. She asks the girl if she is hurt because that whole situation really gave her a scare. But Kobayashi-san is acting all prickly. She snaps back that she didn't ask for her help. She even asks if Kirimi-san is playing some kind of skipping steps game that people usually outgrow in elementary school. She stares Kirimi-san down and asks if she isn't ashamed to be wearing high school clothes as a grown adult.
Kirimi-san takes a moment and admits that it actually is embarrassing. She says that even if the outfit makes her look 10 years younger, it's still just a little bit shameful. However, she looks very determined and tells Kobayashi-san that being a mother who can't do anything for her daughter is much more shameful than wearing a uniform. She continues by saying that's just how mothers are, and mentions she's sure Kobayashi-san's mother is the same way. She says a mother would even wear a sailor uniform for the sake of her daughter. Kobayashi-san gets a terrifying mental image of her own 43-year-old mom, Itsuko, wearing a sailor suit while cooking. She thinks to herself that she definitely wouldn't like that at all. The next morning, Kobayashi-san approaches Kirimi-san in the classroom. She asks if she can get an autograph. Kirimi-san thinks she means her famous daughter's autograph and says that normally people have to go through an agency, but she'll do it just this once. Kobayashi-san stops her though and says she actually wants Kirimi-san's autograph instead. She asks if that isn't okay. Kirimi-san is absolutely touched. Her heart starts throbbing and she thinks to herself that she's finally made a friend in class. She gets so excited that she offers to sign an old gravure photo book for her, but the teacher immediately slides the door open and shouts that she absolutely cannot do that. Next, we move to the school pool. Kirimi-san is wearing a very tight one-piece swimsuit and remarks that kids' swimsuits these days really keep the exposure down. Sensei explains that technically they have free choice, but even so, most students wear separate two-piece suits. Kirimi-san starts to look a bit worried and asks if she is standing out. Sensei can only think to himself that it's crazy she thought she was blending in until just now. During warm-ups, Kirimi-san is taking it very seriously, reminding everyone to make sure they angle themselves properly. Once they get in the water, she tells Sensei that she was looking forward to this so much that she even wore her swimsuit from home. She then makes a pretty weird comment about the pool being soaked with the essence of the younger students and asks if he thinks she might get younger too. Sensei just stares at her, thinking that her way of thinking is totally like a legendary vampire. Kirimi-san is asking the teacher if he is there as an assistant. He tells her that he is, since he is the homeroom teacher after all. Then, Kirimi-san tells him that if she ever starts drowning, she wants him to give her mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. Kazumi-kun is completely stunned and asks her what on earth she is even saying. He tries to stay professional, explaining that he is only there to make sure the students don't drown. Kirimi-san just stares at him, looking a bit disappointed. After the pool session, we see the girls back in the locker room. The other students are changing out of their swimsuits, showing off some pretty fancy underwear, and Kirimi-san is there too. She thinks to herself with a sigh of relief that she was finally able to get through the entire day with no issues. But suddenly, she starts rustling through her bag and realizes something is wrong. She thinks to herself that she definitely should have brought it, and she starts panicking. The other girls, not noticing her stress, tell her to just hand the key to the teacher when she is finished. Kirimi-san is left there gasping, realizing she's in a real bind. Later in the hallway, Kazami-kun runs into her. He says it's very unusual for her not to show up at the prep room during lunch. He asks if she has finally gotten used to being in the class. Kirimi-san is clutching her bag tight and looks incredibly nervous, barely able to look him in the eye. Kazami-kun tries to be nice and mentions that while he personally is a maniac for antiques, he thinks overreacting to someone's clothes would be rude. He tells her it's actually admirable that she is so enthusiastic about her role as a student. But then she suddenly shouts that she's going to leave early and just bolts down the hallway. Kazami-kun tries to call her back because she drops something during her escape. As she runs away with her skirt fluttering, we see what Kazami-kun is holding. It turns out she dropped a pair of white lace panties right in the middle of the hall. Kirimi-san is running as fast as she can, looking absolutely mortified. She eventually comes back to get them, and Kazami-kun is totally speechless. He can't believe she told him she was looking for them at school. Kirimi-san tries to play it off with a joke, saying that if someone has no bread, they should eat cake, and if someone has no panties, they should just wear their gym shorts. Kazami-kun is completely exhausted by her logic. He just notes that today's lunch was sweetbread and looks like he's ready for this school day to be over.